and there isn't a jump to end, so we have to do it this way. Well, the usual thing, can you hear what I'm saying? Oh, yeah? Okay. This is a tour d'horizon. So, the topic areas. Right now, rather than mice, we use this thing. Yeah, terrific. I just wanted to demonstrate that we have the same high resolution HD display as every other platform. That's one of our key messages. And it's a pretty recent snapshot of the BBC page. Okay. Right, so this is my perception. My background is 6 years reviewing BBC and Acorn, Archimedes, RISC PC, i.e. RISC OS, hardware and software, and tagged on to the end of that, must have been doing something right, because I got recruited by Computer Concepts and did 6 years with them, leading software house for both platforms. This is my perception, and these are my views of the key messages. By the standards of this little thing, of course, astonishingly little RAM, I've put this second line, part testimonial, to Martin Werner there, paid for software. We have a business model for small businesses, as well as the open source philosophy that pervades, thank goodness, and enables us to do so much more at so little cost. And the same story is reflected on the hardware too. So people who want, like Gert, of course, with a small series of PCBs, brilliant design, bringing something to the party, but he doesn't want to pay for assembly, right, self-assembly, but designed with that in mind. And likewise, both paid for very modest sums, but also open source where just the design is made available, build it out of VeriBoard or whoever. Okay. So the Acorn machines, the BBC as the prototype that is really a powerful driving force, I know, for Eben, and his talent pool raised on them. Really proven in schools. I got around in those two roles I mentioned to a lot of schools, and this meant not just covering this country, but we went as far as Australia and New Zealand and Hong Kong. So the message has gone far and wide, and that's something we can tap into even half a generation on. Right. Primary especially, little hands nevertheless can manage a mouse with 3 buttons, and because they called the tabula rasa, anyhow, they knew nothing, therefore they just accepted. Right, the middle button is for menu. And this, a lot of you will know a lot of this, but bear with me, not everybody will know all of it. I hope you'll take it in that spirit. To some of you it's ancient history, but it's living history. So there we go. The huge things done with BBC Basic. It's a basic far beyond any other basic. Yes, it still has goto, which is the mark of unstructured programming, but how else would you do hello world in 2 lines? So, anyhow, it can be written in a structured fashion. Now, I should say I'm a mechanical engineer. I've only absorbed some of this by kind of osmosis. But way back in Acorn's history, and this I'm talking B level, you could plug in other languages in ROM, and one of those languages was Pascal. And that is a structured language, and the very fact that it was a co-product with BBC Basic on the B, there was an assimilation of ideas, and that was, it made for friendly programming. It was hugely satisfying. You could buy the magazines, hopefully the one I was writing for at the time, type in the program of the month or whatever, make lots of mistakes and learn even more by fixing it and that kind of thing. But the really powerful, the killer feature, as I understand it, and I'm open to correction, and if you really don't like what I'm saying, put your hand up and I'll accept the interrupt, after all. Sorry, that's an in-joke. But anyhow, is the inline assembler. This is what I've understood from Charles Moir, who else, the boss of computer concepts, because it meant that the cost of entry into blindingly fast implementations was nil. And except, of course, you had to invest in, figure out what this is. But luckily, we had the world's best instruction set, which is why we are going to take over the world. Yeah, Intel doesn't know it yet, but I'm providing you with the evidence, because they're carrying this x86 baggage. Now, whoever came up with segmented addressing should be shot. Right? But they, there's this legacy. It's their legacy. It's their hand behind their back, right? They can only fight one-handed, which is why they have Atom, which is actually a RISC machine underneath the skin, and then they have some firmware sitting on top, which has to do with the x86 bits, right? Just for legacy reasons. So luckily we don't have that. We have Wilson. He defined the instruction set. It is orthogonal. There is no better. Or rather, it might be in a parallel universe, but he's the brightest. Wilson. Dr. Wilson is the brightest person I know. And he works for Broadcom. So, okay, well, you would hire the best, wouldn't you? Anyhow, now this is the key topic which I touched on with Liz. Scratch, in principle, can be ported to the RISC OS environment, and that would be the dream solution for primary. But of course, we need to follow through with all the things which Scratch it can talk to, external hardware, and we need drivers and things like that. And patience. I'm sorry, but it's true. Some things take time to put all the building blocks together, but the price is very high. As I remarked at the Cambridge Jam, we have this second window of opportunity, and we're not going to mess this one up. So it actually, I've seen people recognizing that we may not get all the ducks in line until 2014, but important things will happen, are happening now. I think I can reveal now that, 450,000 ordered so far. Right. So anyhow, now to Raspbian. This, if you like, could be seen as a bridge to another world. They're equally valid in their own way, but this is a gateway to everything, in effect, because it's industrial strength. And when I say that, I don't just mean it's big. It can be tiny. And that is the beauty of the Linux, well, Unix, ultimately Unix system, that you can If we don't need that module, we don't include it in the kernel. We strip, and that's the Linux we want on our little embedded system. Right, and nevertheless, here we go. We've got the same resolution, the same web page. Here is Scratch already running. And I don't know how far we've got on the sort of issues and drivers front, but it's a round the table job, isn't it, to assess where we're at. Okay. I'm making this kind of sweeping statement. What I guess I really mean, I suppose, the environment that's used in universities is a Unix, but it may well be a Linux these days. And we're fortunate in our choice of the Raspbian flavor of Debian. Well, for some reasons I'll come to. Right. So I mentioned UK and overseas. Very, very important to realize there's a world out there. Here's a couple know it oh so well because of the number of time zones they've crossed and the number of air miles they've run up and so on. But in other words, it's a world phenomenon. We are just part of it, and we can learn so much from all the other countries and peoples and enthusiasts out there who are doing wonderful things with their pies. There's some absolutely ace stuff coming from Germany. I can testify to the fact that there's some terrific websites. Nearly all get mentioned by this in turn. Okay, this is just the trick of starting up so you don't have to go through the logging. I think it was something Magpie, wasn't it, an early issue. Scratch, right, Python wouldn't be complete. Many more, in other words, every language you've ever heard of, it's available in the Linux environment, and most often for download, and also development environments and everything you could wish. The 10,000 is derived from over 35,000 packages are available. How many packages make an app is a philosophical question. Okay, but anyhow, the point is you can find software for everything, but it won't be perfect, so you'll modify it, won't you? That's the name of the game. And we can coexist with the x86s because, thanks to Linus Torvalds, that's the reason that Linux exists for x86. But I can show you that this middle line is the issue. I run this sort of super flavor of Ubuntu, Kubuntu, can't live with the other skin, but put KDE on it. It's a really lovely operating environment. Another dimension which I must mention is there's a ace thing called Wine. Wine is not an emulator, recursive. But what it means is if you've got Windows software that you really can't live without, you can install it under Linux with the Wine emulator. We can call it an emulator. It's a layer, and it just works, guys. So Word, Excel, and I'm using, of course, with Zara. And I just upgraded Zara because it runs so well under Linux. Okay, that's the fact of the matter. Okay, oops, back up. Right, this was ready for, I'm collaborating with Graham Hastings at St John's College School in Cambridge with his mini jams. A teacher who really ran with the ball and has brilliant facilities. It's, I guess it's a fun private school. It's feeds into St John's College. And he's got 25 years experience and he really knows his job beautifully. He's afforded us a brilliant venue. So this is my take on life the world and everything is about physical computing, and in particular, measurement and control. And if you don't know this, Minister, you haven't been paying attention. This is historical, right? So we can see the direction of the arrows. Whoops, I pressed the wrong button. Wait a minute. Because this is, it's got a laser pointer as well. Sorry. Right. There we go. Right. Now the laser pointer is there. If I can find it. Right. Right. So we all recognize data computing with screen keyboard. This ever so much more computing nowadays is done in this world here. Okay. Dwell on that. So this is the distinguishing feature of the data computing, as I see it, is the habitual interface. And I want to underline that the Pi has word processing in spreadsheets and has painting quotes, i.e. bitmap, and drawing, i.e. vector, and CAD, vector with dimensions, okay? Well, whether that be 3D or arrows and lines, okay? They're all there, and the reason I say they're already fast enough, these level software, except perhaps the most ambitious bitmap editors, GIMP, stuff like that, will run fast enough on the Pi. But they will be faster over time. Already, Eben and his team have pulled out the stops on the hardware side with turbo mode, but software can nearly always be improved. And as we learn, if I'm getting this right, I hope I am, learn more and more about the specifics of the Broadcom system on a chip, then we can write software to exploit more of the capabilities that are in that chip. Digital signal processing and even fast Fourier routines, I dare say. I'll be corrected, I'm sure, if I'm wrong. Anyhow, another environment is described as media computing. The name of the game is delivering full motion HD video, and yes, that's what it does. That's why, what is it, 4:1 of the area of the chip is graphics processor versus central processor. And I distinguish between the two roughly. The player, it's a pure matter of chance. I've taken RISC BMC. There is another package, which is another port of XBMC, which is called OpenELEC. God knows why, but anyhow, that's its name. We get used to odd names in the world of computing. Heavens knows, well, squeeze plug fixed the biscuit, doesn't it? But whatever. It is in fact a German site, and it's a wonderful piece of work. So if you should wish a media server, I do have a proprietary media server myself. In my home I can stream radio, I can stream my photos, I can stream classical music and the rest of it. But this is the thing, 3 to 5 watts. No, this is not going to break the bank. Right, so on we go. There are more pictures. Okay, this is how I see it. Interacts with real world, so input from sensors. A context here is I've got full-time data logging on my home heating system, but not many people that have been running it for 12 years with 1 minute intervals and 22 channels. We'll do the sums. We're talking about 100 million data points. I think pen and pencil would hardly be up to it. I got a publishable paper out of analyzing that data, but it all derives from making the measurements. So, and I'm happy to say that the hardware, that is the box and the connection to the sensors and so on, is British and the software is British as well. It's a USB connector, and one of these days I'll have it running from a Pi. Anyhow, okay, embedded, ever such an important word, because, I don't know, but let's say, at a guess, maybe a third of all ARMs are in embedded systems. And when we're talking about low power, single figure watts are good. Okay, so it is taught as measurement control. In the business side, as I said, an engineer, all measurements should be calibrated. We're not going to be super rigorous at school level, but when it comes to real world, the word you want is traceability to national standards and so on. But these are the key words which the minister's never heard of, right? That everything is controlled by a closed loop. Well, not everything, but some are open loop, but anyhow, the important ones are closed loop. I'm coming to one. And an essential element of that is the feedback mechanism, and one of Control 101 tells you the feedback must be negative for stability. And now, the interesting bit that opens this topic out to the entirety of the school curriculum and the whole of real life is that these phenomena, these mechanisms are present in natural systems. They're not electronic, but they're there and they're vital. Okay, specifically, I hope you all know that the reason why your deep body temperature is 37, whether you're active or inactive, with various forms of conditions, except if you're ill, of course, and whether it's cold or warm. Right, now, that's a pretty amazing mechanism, isn't it? Reflect on that fact, because you bet all the rest of your systems depend upon that being the case. That's why at rising temperature, body temperature, yes, you are ill. You're perturbing. Right. Another of my enthusiasm. Oh, wrong button again. Sorry, folks. Pressing the wrong button. Yeah, you get a preview. Okay. Back up. I hope I'm taking some of the audience with me. Oops, yeah. A lot of, yes, there's one or two more pictures to come. Yeah, anyhow, right, okay. Theme of the century, if not forever, this fact. Right, it's, this is observably true, tragic, much more tragic than people realize, and you need an understanding of control and feedback to know why it's a tragedy. What happens is, melt the ice caps, the ground laid bare accepts more solar input, and that gives rise to a positive feedback, which means you started something, you don't know how to stop it, right? So it's pretty important you know about control. Okay, right, so it's introduced a primary, and this, the little ones should encounter interfaces like this. Now these evolved with the Acorn and other kit in schools, and these relatively small companies are still in business, and we have to win them over to the Pi as a platform, because tragic, everything is up on the website. So, including all, I can make available all the screen grabs. This is lifted straight off their webpage. Okay. Anyhow, as you can see, just banana plugs, and it's pretty well indestructible. This is a little project, a lighthouse. You can just about glimpse. Woo! There are the lights. And, well, it doesn't matter if you make mistakes, it's designed for making mistakes. And this, I think, is some kind of traffic barrier or something. An arm goes up and down. I think that's a slider control. Okay. But, incidentally, another little snippet. Bill Gates started out writing software to control traffic lights. And he absolutely hates being held up by traffic lights because he knows it should be written better. Anyhow, just something fixed up. Anyhow, right. This is our great friend Gert van Loo, and with his brilliant product, because of course he does know what goes on inside a Broadcom SoC, and therefore he knows how to protect it. This is quite a powerful expansion, but the distinguishing feature, I haven't actually heard it spelled out, but what I would see as a distinguishing feature is the device passive or active? If it's passive, all program running is on the Pi. If it's active, you can offload some tasks to, what is it, ATML, thank you, processor on the board, and this can do little subtasks, which makes it really powerful. So the demands on the Pi proper, its role becomes more supervisory. And there's lots of ideas. This is, I believe, an American application, but what attracted me was that apparently, and not my field, but this H-bridge idea, it's one of the classics, textbook stuff, and the software pulse width modulation. If the big track and all these other things, all the motor control is by pulse width modulation. So you get stepless. I should know, I drive a Prius, so that tells you how many computers there are in the thing. It's 12 years old, and right, it's okay. Anyhow, on we go. This person and company is very supportive of the Pi. He's a potential employer of people who are literate in the Pi, ARM, and a fistful of other languages and so on, especially for embedded systems. I believe most of his money is made on one-arm bandits, but somebody has to do it. And I think he talked about 30,000 units sold, which is quite a lot, and have good markups, but I didn't want to show that. But this he mentioned again on the launch Raspberry Jam. But he sponsors, I think I have this right, the jams in Bristol area, which is close to his neck of the woods. Right, okay. Well, a good cup of tea is never amiss, is it? And that is, you can Google that, and you will find the exact web page and the story, the case study that lays behind this. Now, I'm not pretending that this is necessarily ARM, but it's the area in which you could find gainful employ with ARM skills. That's the crucial point. Okay. Right. So, now we come to the big picture. I think this is incontestable. It's a brilliant business model that is limited design and then license to fabricators across the world. And the client list is worldwide. Nobody can be out of it. Dominant, as I say, in smartphones and tablets. And this is our killer advantage, this higher energy efficiency. And we know, first thing that everybody asks is, well, how long, can I do a day's work? Can I watch an entire video on the train or whatever. But it's really becoming important for the tethered devices, if you will. And here's why. Right, well, there's one way of addressing it is this development. Just Google this term, big little. Who can? I I don't know, it comes up with these names, but anyhow, it's catchy, you could say. But look at that, you know, if a feature can extend battery life by 70%, now that gets somebody's attention, yes. That is a killer feature. Now, I was attracted to this is from their white paper, and I just, you know, it's a screen grab from a PDF, and as I say, did I say automobile engineer? Well, this looks ever so like a road load curve, right? So here's 0, and there's maximum speed, and there's a power curve over there somewhere. But anyhow, so those of you conversant with the internal combustion engine will know that it has a minimum speed and a maximum speed, right? The ratio of the two is what we call the turn-down ratio in other contexts. I've never heard it in automotive, but I mean, that's what it is. Say it's of the order of 4 to 1, right? Okay, so if you want a higher turn-down ratio, what a very smart idea it is to put a little one that complements the big one. Now, a really, really smart idea is to go for what's called, now, I don't understand this, but I'm just quoting it, it's called cache coherency. Now, Eben will tell us afterwards what that means, but anyhow, suffice to say that the program thread, as it were, is running in some circumstances on the big one, you know, when a lot is being demanded of it. But in other circumstances, such as when there's a human in the loop, for example, scratching his head, pulling his hair out, or whatever, I'm being a bit male, but nevertheless, then you want to drop back to an idle state, and because the two processors have the same instruction set, you can pass over. Right, here's what I was working on. Keep the thing going at almost sleep level, and when something interesting happens, wake me up and I'll accept the baton. And it almost is. When diagrammed out, it's a baton passing operation. But of course, it's got to be done right, so it happens in rather few machine cycles. Anyhow. So this is what I call clever. Well, it's proprietary. But he'll know.
How do you know it's expressionistic?
How do you know it's linear? I don't. But it would be unusual if it were logarithmic. If it were logarithmic, I'd understand it, which the minister doesn't understand. Logarithms, what are they? I was obviously absent or something.
It is, in any case, it's a very impressionistic role. Whenever I present this.
Yeah. I mean, I'm exactly. Yeah, that's right. No, it isn't meaningless because most people, I hate to put it in quite these terms, but they're lazy. All they do is erase the scale. In other words, so the shape of the graph very likely remains the same. But I'm maybe overstating that, just projecting what I would do. But anyhow, you understand. But suffice to say, it's bloody clever. And here's another, which is, sorry to use the terminology, but it is bloody clever. Look, factor 10. Minister, you have been paying attention. We don't need 10 new nuclear power plants. We need factor 10. Right? Problem solved. It's gone away. And incidentally, the same is true in lighting. The same is true in every end use. Minister, you do know about thermodynamic limits, don't you? And you do know that we can approach within factor 2 of the thermodynamic limits if we're commissioned to do so, right? So get to it. And if we don't do it, there's a hell of a lot of bright people elsewhere in the world who will do it and sell us the result, right? So you've got to get your head around this because it's called due diligence. Right? Anyhow, that's another story. But just get this. Now, each of these 4, and you can see the handy size it is, right? Take 5 watts. Flat out. And idles at 1/10 of that. Well, you know, that's mind-blowing. you have to realize that means it packs ever so tight. Roughly speaking, 40U becomes 2U, factor 20. Well, I think there's a huge saving in space. Because it's a huge saving in power to drive it, there's a correspondingly huge saving in cooling. It's quieter, doesn't require aircon. Guys, factor 10 in bottom line is not to be sneezed at, right? And might even earn you a living. Okay, so this is the big picture. They can be Pies as they are can replace Wintel PCs in schools and homes now. And this has huge significance. Firstly, there's the saving of money, but there's an underlying effect which is not sufficiently recognized, and that is we're in command of our own futures again. We can make a difference. It's not sealed boxes. It's not shrink-wrapped stuff from Seattle. It's what we can write and earn our living at. So it's that best of all worlds, save money for the UK economy, and I want to make an acknowledgement of what Liz and Ewan & Co. have done by bringing the manufacture of the Pi back home, right, and gainfully employing the Sony plant, which used to make televisions in the days when we were even in the frame for televisions. Even the Japanese can't keep up with the Koreans these days, and when you look at the product, you can see why. I'm not denigrating the Japanese, because they're bloody marvellous stuff, and if they're clever, it's joint ventures and offshoring and all that kind of thing. But that's the way you build a better mousetrap. And the Koreans are really, really running it all. Why else is the first chip we're pointed to the Samsung on top of most of the Pis, and certainly that was how you identified your 512 versus your 256. In my case, with a magnifying glass. But anyway, okay. So this is my assertion. It's a better platform for learning and doing, and because if we break it, well, it's not the end of the world. We learn something, we find it, or we try on it, or whatever. But it's mine, and I can do what I like with it, and whether that's large or small, doesn't matter. You're having fun, you're engaged, and you've got a certain control of your world. I'm sure there's a German word for it, and I suspect it's Weltanschauung. But anyhow, on we go. So it will increase if we're successful in joining these dots, realizing Egan's vision, and not just the famous 1,000 candidates for the Cambridge Computer Science Department, but for all the other unis, computer science departments, and all the other unis, all their departments. Because when you get absolutely right down to it, it's maths, physics, and chemistry. If you're on, well, here, there's biology, doesn't get on this. These are the things you've got to master, and there are some really, really clever things in the mathematics field. I think I mentioned fast Fourier transforms. It was in fact a multi-country, you could say multicultural development, although it was actually announced at MIT. Fast Fourier transforms executed 10 times faster. My, that got some attention. Anyhow, it just shows it's almost limitless. This is the limit application of the brain. Okay, so that is it, and that is, I venture to call this is my gourd board. homage to the GERT board. It just ties down the key components because for home and away situations like this, I don't have to disassemble the thing to its component parts. Piece of plywood I happen to have around and some cable ties. Well, that wasn't rocket science, was it? But bloody handy. And this presentation is up on my website, and that is the bottom line there. Okay, that's it. Questions? Good, bad, whatever.
Yeah. Could that system handle thousands of logins in a school? You know, you said you want to replace that with WinType. That's a fantastic idea. But could it cope with all the admin tasks? It's a bit too small to do.
Oh, well, yes. I'm seeing it as a client machine. Behind that, maybe a server machine, and actually, even I felt better qualified than I to answer such a question. But suffice to say that ARM is moving fast into the server domain, and so it can still be ARM platformed. I forgot a couple of points. One was that ARM is producing a 64-bit variant, so it can larger addressing space. Guys, that'll be enough. That's the wonders of the binary system.
So it can do it,
yes. On what timescale, I do not know, but this startup company, now 4 years old, Calzida, received important chunk of launch money from ARM Limited. Right? In other words, they saw a chunk of territory they wanted to move into. We can help this happen. And it's still going.
Full speed ahead, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's been taken up by nearly all the big server people, HP, Dell, and the rest. Yeah. Okay. We can reach back to RISC OS. I mean, in timeline terms, but I know who to pass the question over to if necessary. That would be Martin. I'm very happy on my main machine being this Ubuntu, and that it's seamlessly, I can transfer my files between the two, the Pi environment and the main machine. Don't know what to press. Oh well, you just said it all.